Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. Alex Barth, Cerrone battle. We're now joined by Christopher Price. He covers the Patriots for the Boston Globe. Chris, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. How you doing?
Doing good, especially because I don't have to run right to Gillette after the show. I get some time in between because the Patriots are back in prime time, a real prime time game, not the league-mandated Thursday night game, a real prime time game for the Patriots tonight. Big picture, being back in prime time on this stage against the Bills, the team that have owned this division since Tom Brady left. What does this game represent for the Patriots on the national stage?
I think we'll know exactly who they are after Sunday night. I think that we're still not completely sure where they rest in the NFL hierarchy, at least at this stage of the season after 4 games. We know that they're not a cellar dweller. Look, we know that they're not going to get a top 5 pick, for instance. But I think if they win tonight, or even if they're competitive, if they can push the Bills through 3+ quarters, then maybe we start to kind of readjust our expectations around this team, because if they can do that, then maybe they're a 8, 9, dare I say it, 10-win team, especially when you consider the road ahead. If not, maybe, we kind of say, well, they are who we thought they were. So I think this is going to be a really great opportunity for them to really distinguish themselves and really kind of start to lay out a true level of expectation for what to expect from this team moving forward today.
For that to happen tonight, where do you see them being able to attack this Bills team? Where are the Bills weak, and where can this Patriots team really take advantage of them on both sides of the ball?
Run the ball. Keep the game manageable. And look, a lot goes into that, first of all. You need to keep this thing manageable. You can't turn the ball over. You can't get in a 14-0 hole early. You need to figure out a way to keep this a game. You need to figure out a way to keep Josh Allen off the field. You need to figure out a way to keep Cook off the field, Shakir, all of those offensive options. And the best way to do that is to run the ball and put together some long, sustained drives. Buffalo is one of the worst teams in the league against the run. Now, look, a lot of those numbers need to be put in context because they're winning in the second half, and they're more than willing to trade rushing yards for clock. So, you figure that into the equation, but they are soft against the run when you compare them to pretty much every other, aspect of what they do. So if you can shrink the game down, if you can keep the game in the 20s, look, you're not going to win if this thing gets up into the 30s. You want to keep this thing relatively modest. I'm telling all my friends I know, take the under here, because, if you're a Patriots fan, because that's the best formula for success when it comes to this game. You're going to want to shrink the game down. You're going to want to run the ball against a relatively soft run defense. And so you want to do what you can do to keep that offense off the field for as long as possible.
In order to do that, and you mentioned the importance of ball security, obviously Ramondre Stevenson was better last week, but that thing still looms. Most fumbles in the NFL since the start of last year. They also haven't gotten Travion Henderson going. Their run game as a whole, frankly, has struggled. So you kind of have a stoppable force against a movable object, so to speak, with the Patriots run game against the Bills run defense. Is this a game where you lean heavily on Stevenson? Would this be a good game to try to jumpstart Travion Henderson? Does Antonio Gibson factor in? How do you see the workload being distributed among the running backs?
I would love to see more touches for Travion Henderson. I think that he is, we saw it over the course of the summer. And look, granted, it's the summer. It's, joint practices and preseason games and, guys who are playing in the CFL at this point. So you take it all with a grain of salt. But I would love to be able to see him get more touches tonight. He's kind of an unknown quantity, at least at this stage of his career. I think he could throw a bit of a curveball at the Bills. I also, too, when I say kind of, run the ball, you can kind of run the ball with these short passes, these quick passes, this just kind of getting the ball out as fast as possible. So I guess ultimately to answer your question, Alex, I would love to see them unlock Travion Henderson tonight, but this is going to take a total team effort when you look at the running backs room. So you're going to need all hands on deck. I think that, there's still a sense of trepidation when Ramondre has the ball. And I think that's probably, it's unfair to him, but kind of it is what it is at this stage of his career. So you get him the ball, you get Gibson the ball, you get Henderson the ball, you rotate guys through, and that's really, for me, the best way to kind of control this game.
On the other side of the ball, do you see the Bills being able to actually they say got to have a situation 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, whatever. Do you see the Bills being able to attack the Patriots secondary with Gonzalez being back? Do you think the Bills have the receivers and the skill on the outside to attack the Patriots, or is that a strength that you would give to the Patriots when it comes to that matchup?
I think it's a winnable matchup for New England if Gonzalez is completely healthy. I'm still a little bit cautious about how they're going to handle the tight ends. I know, Alex, I heard you on with Toucher and Hardy earlier this week talking about the possibility of, using Gonzalez against one of the tight ends. And I think there's a very real chance of that happening tonight. So a lot depends on how the Patriots decide to deploy their defensive backs. And I think if Gonzalez is on one of the tight ends, that frees up Marcus Jones, that frees up Carlton Davis. But put it this way, I like their chances a lot more now that Gonzalez is back in the lineup, as opposed to the fact that he was questionable coming into last week's game. I think last week's game was an excellent ramp-up opportunity for him. So I think that there are gains to be made there. If you're New England, it's a potentially winnable matchup, but I think in a lot of ways that's going to determine this game. If the Patriots can figure out a way to slow down Josh Allen, and I'm not just talking about through the passing game, it's about keeping him contained, not overrushing the passer. I know we're not going to see Chase on today, so a lot of it is going to rest on Anthony Jennings, Keon White, to be able to hold that edge, Harold Landry, to be able to hold that edge, to be able to force him back inside, where theoretically Milton Williams and Christian Barmore would be there waiting for him.
Talking to Christopher Price, the Boston Globe, you mentioned Milton Williams has been unbelievable through the first 4 games. I was on yesterday with Matt McCarthy. I said, think about how good you have to be in this media landscape to sign a $100 million contract, biggest in the history of the franchise, and live up to it through 4 weeks, which he's done. Missed a day of practice this week, was limited the other days with an ankle injury. Ian Rappaport is reporting he is going to play. How much of an impact does it make on the Patriots defense if he's not 100%, and how good do they need him to be able to pull off an upset and win this game?
He's their second most important defensive player behind Christian Gonzalez. He is. And I think a healthy Milton Williams is going to go a long way toward winning this game. Even Milton Williams at 75%, because as you said, look, this is a guy who's clearly lived up to the $100 million contract, at least, 4 games into his NFL, or 4 games into his New England career. He is vital to what they want to get done defensively. And while they do have some decent options there in the middle, including, and it's not a 1-for-1 swap, but I'm just talking big bodies here in Tonga. He just takes them to another level. He just, it's like in the secondary when they didn't have Gonzalez, they had Davis and they had Marcus Jones and Alex Austin. All of those guys are decent guys. They're all competitive, and they all give you a chance to win. They're not Christian Gonzalez. All those guys up front, they're all decent guys. They're all competitive guys. They're not Milton Williams. And so you take Milton Williams out of the equation, the chances of losing this game become, I don't want to say significantly greater, but it removes a very important piece of what the Patriots want to get done defensively.
And last one for me, speaking of free agency, flip it to the other side. Stefon Diggs, he wants to show out today. Could you see a situation to where he kind of wants it too much? How do you keep Drake May from forcing the ball to Stefon Diggs so he has his big moments? Or do you think he'll say, you know what, we got to play this team game, we got to run the ball, whatever? Could you see them caught in a situation to where they're trying to force it to him in certain situations, or will he'll be able to play a kind of a laid-back game and keep with the game plan?
I don't think that he'll be able to – look, if any of us was in this position, we'd be jacked up, talking to Diggs over the course of the week that, it's only natural he's going to be emotional going into this game because so much happened here and because of the way he left. And so I think that's one of the most, if not the most compelling storyline coming into this game. Look, the Patriots have been, when the offense has been at its best, they've spread the ball around. They've had 4 different guys lead the team in receiving over the course of the first 4 games. I talked to Garrett Bradbury about this week, that this team and this offense kind of gets it, and I think Diggs is part of that as well. I think he understands where he is, and I think he understands where Drake is in his overall development. If this had happened like in November and December, I think it might have been a different story. But I think right now, and look, Diggs is saying all the right things at this point in his career, so we kind of have to take him at face value. I think he's going to be okay going into this thing, but it's going to be awfully fun to watch him and see how all that plays out over the course of the evening.
He is Christopher Price, covers the Patriots for the Boston Globe. Find him on social media at @CPriceGlobe. Chris, thanks for joining us this morning, and enjoy the game tonight.
My pleasure, guys. Take care. We'll talk soon.